Hello, I'm Kayleigh-Roseevans, social worker in the UK. In this video, we're going to be doing a bit of a deep dive into safeguarding adults legislation and also looking at applying this to practice scenarios as well. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, that really helps. The first thing that I wanted to do is outline some of the key pieces of legislation informing practice in this area. The key piece of legislation is the Care Act, and that is there to provide the legal statutory basis under section 42 if we have concerns that someone's unable to protect themselves and appears to be at risk of abuse or neglect. Then we have the Mental Capacity Act, which protects individuals who lack capacity to make decisions, and it includes a focus on preventing abuse and exploitation. We have the Human Rights Act, which underpins everything and makes sure that we are acting in a way that's balanced and that we're respecting people's rights. The Safeguarding Vulnerable Groups Act 2006, so that bars unsuitable people from working with vulnerable groups. This was updated by the Protection of Freedoms Act in 2012, including the Disclosure and Barring Service, and the DBS manages checks and barring decisions for children and adults. We then have the 6 principles of safeguarding which are worth knowing about. So they're within the Care and Support Statutory Guidance. So empowerment, prevention, proportionality, partnership and protection, and then finally accountability. So with empowerment, it's about supporting individuals to make informed decisions and informed consent. So an example is, if you're working with someone and you're trying to empower them through the safeguarding process, if they were having a knife with them to protect themselves from abuse from someone else because they felt at risk, you could tell them about the risks of doing that might end up getting them in more trouble with the law, or also that knife could be turned around on them. So that's something that I was involved in supporting someone with, and it's things like that about acknowledging when someone needs to be aware of something and the risks of doing it, and then working with them to think about other options to keep themselves safe. So it's about finding solutions that will work for that individual. They may actually come up with solutions themselves, or it may be that you can signpost them to something that will be really helpful. But it's about a collaborative approach to that and working in partnership with the person. And then prevention. So I've been involved in sort of financial abuse cases where you've had to think about how to protect someone's finances. So something with sort of older people sometimes getting in situations with cybercrime, which is very, very prevalent. And I remember someone where they were getting exploited by someone, believing they were in a relationship, and they were then sending them money, and this person made them believe that they were going to be together, and it wasn't the case, and we had to act quickly to prevent them losing all of their finances. So things like that are very important, to sort of act quickly and try and prevent an escalation in that abuse. Proportionality is about responding with the least intrusive response. So quite often you may find as a social worker, you're expected to just jump in and remove the person, remove the adult from the situation. Really, you need to be very careful about acting in that way and taking the victim out of that scenario. So if the person wants to remain in their own home, sometimes you find that people say, oh, just get them out of that house and they'll be absolutely fine, they'll stop being targeted. But that might not be the right thing. That might ruin someone's entire life, and why should they move out? It should be the people in the area that are causing the problem that are the ones that get the negative repercussions of what's going on. So that's about getting sort of the police involved and securing people in their properties and finding ways to safeguard them and manage the risk, but not being overly sort of intrusive on people's life and restricting their freedoms, because that's not what this is about. So partnership being a key one. This is about collaborating with people and communities to find solutions. So something that I've been involved with before is around sort of situations where there was cuckooing going on and someone was going into hospital, and I was worried that the people involved in this would turn up at the person's property whilst they were out of the house, and I was worried about the security of their property. And so the local police did checks on that while they were away, and it was just part of a wider safeguarding plan for that individual. And then accountability, being transparent and responsible in our safeguarding practices. So we need to be including people, be clear on what the outcomes are, the outcomes that that person wants, how we're going to achieve them. And with making safeguarding personal, it's about making sure that we're very much aware of what people want from the safeguarding, not feeling like they're just part of a process that provides no real outcomes for them. It's about working with people, making sure people feel informed of what's going on to help them. They know what their options are, and you've got a protection plan to keep them safe, which they're happy with as well. So there are 10 categories of abuse within the care and support statutory guidance. So that's physical abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, financial material abuse, modern slavery, discriminatory abuse, organisational and institutional abuse, neglect and acts of omission, and self-neglect. So you can see that I was reading then, because I probably could remember, but not to say it as quickly as that. But it's worth knowing about those different types of abuse, because when we're looking out for those, it's just good to have it in our minds. But obviously we can always check in the legislation and see what's there. With making safeguarding personal, I've already touched on that, but there's 3 questions that are worth asking yourself. We need to focus on a person-centred approach, asking what difference does the individual want or need out of this safeguarding process? How will you work together to achieve it? How will you measure the outcome? In some circumstances, there may be some limitations to actually gathering the person's views. That might be if they cannot communicate, although you need to show that you've found other creative ways to engage the person in the process. So that might be including speech and language therapy, or drawing pictures, or using other visual tools to help the person. They may lack capacity and not be able to express their chosen outcomes. If we're trying to raise a safeguarding concern, we may have to do it without the person's consent. If the risk around them disclosing would intensify the situation, we can go ahead and raise that and act accordingly. But we should always try and get consent if we can. But all of that is around sort of, if we can't get the person's views, trying our best to consult with trusted people around that individual. So we are trying to get what their views would be, because it's all about that person. So that's super important. And then I thought I'd finish with a bit of a scenario. So this scenario, it's Jordan is a resident of a supported living environment. They have limited mobility and requires assistance to transfer to and from a chair. Staff are often busy managing multiple tasks, and Jordan is sometimes takes longer to get settled in the chair after a transfer. On one occasion, staff use a loose belt from a bathrobe to secure Jordan in the chair temporarily while they attend to another resident. They explain this is to ensure Jordan doesn't slide out while they're away, but they leave Jordan unattended for over 20 minutes. When another staff member finds Jordan, they notice that the belt is too tight and causing discomfort and restricting his movement. Jordan is visibly distressed, and the incident is later reported by another resident. So looking at this scenario, that would meet the criteria under safeguarding, because the person's unlikely to be able to protect themselves from this abuse and neglect. It would come under neglect and acts of omission, and we would need to look at the issues surrounding this incident. Obviously, looking at the fact that that person wasn't able to move, so they were being restricted of their liberty, and we'd have to look at other ways of of managing this care scenario. So what are the wider issues at play here? Why are staff having to do this? Like, is there an issue with staffing? And all of that sort of thing can be looked into as the safeguarding process goes forward. But you can see why a situation like this, staff may feel that they're doing the right thing, but we need to be looking at situations proportionately, making sure that people aren't being restricted. And it's so important for that person because they may not be able to advocate for themselves. So it's in situations like this where it's so key that we are balanced and picking up things and preventing things getting worse, because that could really impact on that person's safety and quality of life. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. We could go far deeper into that case scenario, but I didn't want this video to be too long. If you found it helpful, let me know, because I'm always looking at new content ideas, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you.